right, Watson watch continues. Yeah, you're right. That's a good question, McNuggets. Is today the day? I thought for sure it was going to happen last Friday. I thought for sure it would happen Monday, Tuesday. I give up. Jay, are you done trying to figure this out, or are you just...
I reached that point a while ago.
Yeah.
I'm just wake me up when we have some actual news and some substance. I do think it sounds like there's enough momentum and traction. I would be surprised at this point if they didn't settle, which is completely different than what I said Monday. I think Monday.
Well, we weren't hearing anything about a settlement until this week.
Yeah.
You think that makes sense for either or both sides?
I think it makes a lot of sense for both sides because, it's a point I made earlier this morning was if the league goes for a year, this isn't – I think both sides want clarity and want resolution. They just want this to be over. I think everyone's exhausted right now. And if the league drops a hammer and says a year, this is probably going to wind up in federal court. And I don't think anybody wants that to drag this out even longer.
Right.
So can both sides get to a number that they can both stomach and live with? Because that's what a negotiation is.
Yeah.
Can both sides – Deshaun has already publicly said 8. The league said a year. Can we agree on 12?
I think that's what it seems like it's going to be.
Somewhere between 10 and 12.
I'm telling you, I know the new answer. Because everybody's obsessed with even numbers, and you're all obsessed with even numbers.
11.
You're going to go 11?
It's going to be 9 games.
9?
9.
This way they can say it's more than half the season, right? And because the original deal was 6, suspension. The league wants 12.
The league wants 17.
Well...
I mean, he's on record saying he wants the season.
Yeah. True, but we have heard, at least reported, I don't know if it's true, but this is what I'm going by, is that the league would be okay with 12. They were at some point in the last month.
Well, that might be their landing point in a negotiation.
That's where I'm splitting the difference between the 6 that he was given and the 12 that the league would be okay with.
That's funny math. I mean, I see what you're doing.
It is funny math, but it's all funny math.
I just felt like because the league wanted 17 and we're sitting at 6, and if you meet in the middle of that, you're at 11 games or so.
The bigger issue also is no one really we've never gone through this before. So if he's out for the year, what does that do with the contract? What does that do?
I was reading that it does toll. If he's out for the year, the contract tolls.
But I don't think anybody knows that for sure. Well, I shouldn't say that. If it's 11, 12, 13, there's some ambiguity over what happens with the contract, what happens with the cap number this year and next year.
I would almost think a fair way to settle that was if he plays more than half the year, then it counts.
Under the old CBA, it was 6 games. I talked about that when I was in before.
Right.
You had to play 6 games.
Is there language in this agreement?
There doesn't seem to be a lot of clarity on that.
Oh, you're saying if it's 11 or 12, does the contract toll?
No. We're trying to figure out at what point the clock
If you remember back
starts.
to Le'Veon Bell,
right,
and it was the whole he had to show up in
6
Pittsburgh
games.
for the last 6 games.
Right.
That was under the old CBA. There's a new CBA, and there seems to be some ambiguity over the language in this one and if that 6 still applies or not.
But that's different. One's a suspension, one's a holdout.
But I'm just saying there's so many issues at play here that I don't think anyone, even including the league, doesn't really know the answer to. So if you negotiate a settlement, you can lay all that out. You can explain all of this out.
That's
and
true.
you think maybe that's why it's taking so long because they're crossing those T's and dotting those I's?
I think it's more than just the number of games. I think there's a lot of implications.
There's going to be a huge financial component.
But don't you think
right?
if they'd at least agreed to the games, that would have gotten out by now?
No, I don't think
so.
No, okay. It's just like most trade rumors.
Yeah,
don't come out until the deal's done.
So we're having multiple. Like 2 people told me at Browns camp that they were close to an agreement, and then Mary Kay put something out yesterday, and then Florio. You think they're all getting it from the same person, or are some of them? What's happening here?
There's only when you're talking about sources, you can talk to anybody you want, but the most respected journalists, the people that you're mentioning, there's really only 4 or 5 people that you can get information from. Realistically, if you want
couple on each side.
Couple on each side.
Yep.
And I'm not going to name who they are.
Right.
But there's probably 2 or 3 people on each side that you could really trust.
Yep.
And all of the people you're talking to or you're mentioning are probably all talking to the same people out of that pot of 4 or 5.
Yeah.
There's 100 people you can talk to.
Yeah, but how many that are actually in the know,
right.
and that are going to give you information that's reliable? A lot of times, I know you know this, when you're a journalist and you're using sources, you only use a bad source one time.
That's right.
And so the people that are leaking information are people that these reporters have all leaned on before and have never burned them with bad information before.
And I have the conversation all the time with people, and you start a relationship, just don't lie to me. If you can't tell me something, fine. I would rather hear, I can't get into that, I can't tell you that if you lie to me. If you lie to me, you're dead to me, and we will go to war. Just don't lie to me.
Yeah.
And a lot of people feel that way.
This whole situation is just like planning a wedding. Like, it started off like, oh, we love each other. This is great. You know, we got Deshaun Watson. And then as you keep going down, like planning the wedding, you start talking about catering. Then you start talking about how much it is a plate. Then you start talking if Edna's coming.
How many guests?
How many guests? And now she says, well, we need this to be an intimate setting. And then you're like, well, you know, I got 96 people in my family, so you know what it is. Well, does your little cousin need to come? Because we don't do cousins in my side of the family. Then you look at the list, there's 5 of...
Are you speaking from experience right now?
This whole
He's been married
experience.
8 times already.
This whole experience. And you get to the point where you're just like, all right, don't make me cancel this wedding, right? But then you're thinking about if I cancel it, that's $12,000. That's $14,000 I gotta pay. So you're looking at the fine. Like, okay, and then you just keep going along down the line and you look at each other, you're like, now if we arguing about who get to come eat this salad and what music we're playing, how the hell are we talking about where we're gonna live and what schools?
It's a pretty good first test.
It
really is.
And I failed that multiple times, yeah.
So you were engaged to be married more than once and called it off? Oh my
3.
goodness.
And I was
my
married.
goodness.
Then I was kind of married, and well, I was
Kind of?
married.
That's like kind of pregnant.
Yeah,
right?
I was engaged.
You're in or out?
I was engaged, and then like we was right when we were handing out envelopes, right? It's like, all right, here's your envelope for this. Here's your envelope for this. And we couldn't get along when we was handing out the invitations. But the crazy part is, and it's the comparison to this.
You went through with it anyhow.
Because it's just like Deshaun Watson. You already down the road, dog. You got your people coming in. Your friends got regular jobs. They done took a week off of vacation. They done spent flight money. You got $12, $13, $14, $20,000 put in venues and the dress is already bought. Even if you know you don't like the woman no more.
Man, you're
You
crazy,
gonna sit
bro.
right up there.
I'm
and
running.
You gonna say,
I'm running.
You're gonna say,
I'm sorry you spent all that money.
Yeah, but I am not in
Cancel
love
the
with this
ticket.
woman.
bro,
It's all a fraud. Goodbye.
I was at the altar. I was sitting there.
No.
No, for real. He was asking me these questions. And I said, yeah, this ain't going to work.
No, wait. So
Should have ran.
in the ceremony,
Yeah. In my head, during the time, I said, oh, this not going to work.
but you didn't pull ripcord for real. You just pulled it in your head.
In my head. And so what happened
But you
was,
went through with it.
I went through with it.
Oh,
And you were
my
divorced how
God.
long?
And I was divorced like 8-10 months later.
Wow.
But I had to just take the L though.
No, you shouldn't have taken
you
the
do.
L.
You do.
No, you don't.
No, hold on.
McNuggets, there's a segment here. I think our viewers should send their relationship questions to G. Bush.
You got
It would be hilarious to hear
Oh
you
my
give
God.
relationship advice.
If you got 10, 12 people, your best friends, and they took time off work, and it's a destination wedding, and you got 30,000, and your mom's sitting up there, you're the oldest born, and you just like, I was like, well, here's what I could do. I could walk out of this joint right now, and it'll be a whole you-know-what show. Or I could go ahead, plea bargain down, take this L, try to make it work on the back end, and at least I could get an annulment. Like we
no,
don't
you can monetize it today. You
Yes.
tell some of your boys what you're going to do.
Yeah.
They're taping it. It's on World Star a half hour later, and you're making bank. And here's the other
I
thing.
didn't think of that route.
You know where you're going, okay? You know what the destination is. Why are you going on the journey?
Well, here's the thing. You already had the time invested. It's the investment.
No.
Hold on.
The money's sunk. You just get out.
No. Listen, you got house. So you already got a house. You got a mortgage. You got cars. You got. And by the way,
Yeah.
this is after I already postponed it. So I postponed it the first time, and it was $14,000 down the drain. So then.
Cut your losses and
So
run.
I should have cut my losses then.
Yes,
But
you blew it.
That was the opportunity right there. But when we got back into the second time, I said, "There's no way in hell." I
you
didn't
had
postpone it once. Like they would have told you, "What the
So
hell?"
you
think
doubled
about?
down on bad decisions.
Yes,
Yes.
I pulled the Trump. Never plea bargain. Just double down. I just went for it. It worked out well.
G. Bush in love.
Hey,
my God.
and
What a
little did I
mess.
know, my parents and everybody sitting around was like, "Yeah, this is not going to work." Everybody
Of
knew
course
it.
they knew
So
it.
when they
Everybody
said
knew
They
it.
know
now-
you. They love you. They can read
When
you.
they say speak now or forever hold your peace,
No one-
everybody should have
That's
spoken
a
up.
good
Everybody
time to
sat on
say
their
it.
hands.
Yeah, right.
But I'm telling you,
Don't
the reason
do it, G!
The reason I bring up World Star is if your boys are recording and you just get up and walk out the church,
He could have ran. Should have just ran
run,
down the
do
aisle.
whatever.
Runaway
You know,
groom.
come up with a clever
Christ.
line like, LeBron's taking my talents to South Beach. Come up with some hook
Yeah.
Look right at your boy's camera, say it, and run out the
what
church.
you should have done. That's good
You would have
advice.
monetized the hell out of that clip.
Well, knowing her, she might have shot me. Not for real.
Was she packing on the wedding day?
Like, bro, she gave everybody the business that day. She was just.
Oh, my God.
Now, that was a great episode of Bridezilla, by the way. Good gracious. Shout out to
Real quick,
Damn.
I saw a clip yesterday of an ex-husband giving the toast at his ex-wife's new wedding.
Get out of here.
It was the most awkward
Was
thing.
it like a roast toast?
A little bit, but he was like really cool. He was great about it. They had kids together. And
That's got to be one of the only times that's ever happened.
That's
it was unbelievable.
crazy.
By the way, I had my cousin at her first of her 5 marriages told me on her wedding day she didn't want to get married. And I, like you, said, let's go. I'll take you out of here right now.
Yeah.
I'll take you. We'll go wherever you want to go. I'll take you out of here.
Please tell me she did it.
She didn't listen to me, of course. Yeah. She got married. She got divorced 10 months later, just like you.
10 months, that's the window.
Yeah, that seems to be the
That's the shelf life.
At some point, you're like, okay, I played this game.
Yeah.
I got all I could out of it. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
I'm running.
Then she invited me to her second wedding. I said, nah, I'm out.
I'm good, yeah.
Nah, I'm good now. I'm not doing nothing else.
Yeah, now he's got a good wife. But
But you know what? It all worked out for you.
Yes, it did.
I'm looking at your brand new Range Rover, literally right through the window.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you about
Yeah,
that.
I know. How about that?
Wait, talk to me about that. You talk to her about that.
she bought it for him.
Everybody giving me grief about my car.
Hey,
Well,
look
you
at
bought it without talking to your wife. She bought it for him.
Without talking to him.
Like,
That's true, but it was for him, not for herself.
I know.
that is a conundrum there. I
gotta say, I think you really won this deal.
I did win that deal.
You did.
I shout out. Listen, I'll tell you what. Listen, God forbid if she dies, I'm not doing nothing else. I'm going to get cats and just live.
You're done. You're out of the relationship.
I'm out of
game?
No, I'm not. I'll come do this show or whatever show I'm doing. I'm done. I'm not talking to nobody ever. I'm done with it.
No, you've got the right one. Let's
I
not
already
even talk
did
about
6
you know,
times.
You have the right one.
Question for you guys with Watson. We just got this from Twitter, which I think is a decent question. Let's say Watson's decision doesn't come today
Yeah.
or tomorrow.
Right?
Does he play Sunday?
No.
I
I've
agree.
seen enough.
This is interesting, by the way.
I've seen enough.
Tom Withers of the AP. This could mean nothing, could mean something.
Good reporter,
Okay.
great
Just-
reputation.
Yes, absolutely. Just tweeted Browns media availability delayed. Could that mean there's some news coming?
Why would they delay it?
Well, that's player availability. Should be starting in about 8 minutes.
it's
8
not
minutes from
coach.
now.
Kevin doesn't talk till 1:30.
Yeah.
No, but he said the
Players.
player availability. That would-
Has he even been ready?
What do you mean?
Has he even been available?
No,
He hasn't been available.
Deshaun talked at the press conference.
Yep.
And,
And
then,
then-
one day during minicamp.
He has no
Second or
availability.
third day in, he
Yeah.
talked.
And that's it.
Yeah.
That's all he's been made available.
Bull,
Yeah.
what do you make of that?
Um,
Why would a team
I mean, I
delay
think it could
media
just-
availability
it could
when you're
just
on
be a
such a schedule?
coincidence.
it could
but
just be a coincidence.
It could be a coincidence, certainly, but it makes me think that maybe they are expecting some news.
The Browns and a lot of NFL teams run like clockwork. Like
That's
Right.
That's why I'm asking
And if
this
the
question.
news breaks while players are talking, that's something the team doesn't want.
You know as well as I do that nothing knocks a team off its daily schedule. Nothing.
Right, nothing.
It's
Not-
like when you have
yeah.
a standing golf game.
Right.
That means you're not allowed to cancel it.
Kevin
Yeah.
isn't out at 127. He's not out at 132. He's
He's out at
130.
130.
Unlike
Every
the
day.
And wherever he needs to
130.
be at 150, he's there.
Yep.
Everything is synchronized to the second.
Especially with Stefanski, like with Freddie
Yeah.
and with Hugh, the schedules got
Yeah,
screwed
but
up.
you know what?
But
Usually,
with-
most of the NFL teams I've been around and
Yeah.
covered on a regular basis, things
the-
operate to the minute. You look at their daily notes when you get their schedule, like 117, they're
Yeah.
moving from 5-on-5s to this drill. 127.
The other sports aren't like
Stefanski's
that.
buttoned up. He does not
Yeah.
mess with the time.
So what does it say to you that
It
they
says
would
to
move
me,
this?
I mean, again, I would say I feel like there's a 75% chance they're expecting something to happen. That's just speculation, obviously, but that's how it feels to me because as Jason said, as I said, because we used to carry their press conferences, his press conferences on the radio, and like when they said there was a 1 o'clock press conference,
So
it would start on time, and so this is interesting to me that it could be something.
Here's something I take away from it.
Yeah.
In the old days, news could break while players were doing interviews, and then the players were never asked about that.
Right.
But you know
Sure.
how it is now. Someone in that scrum
Absolutely.
will see the breaking news 4 seconds after it moves.
Yep.
And 8 seconds later, the question is posed to the player. That
Right.
never used to be the case.
Right.
So I'm wondering if I would think that the league has probably told all parties involved when they're going to make the announcement. I would imagine. If a decision has been made, so whenever a decision like this is happening, the decision's made, then the next step in that process is how do we roll this news out? And so I would imagine that if it was, let's say they came to the agreement last night, okay, how are we going to roll this out? Let's put this out tomorrow at 11:30. And those times, sometimes they're arbitrary and sometimes they're very strategic. But I wonder if they know that it's coming when the players would be in that window, and that's why they pushed it off.
It's if you're talking about Peter Harvey versus a settlement, I think we're having two different
I'm
conversations
talking about the
here.
settlement. I don't think the Harvey thing
I think a settlement is kind of like a trade, right? This is a negotiation
between two parties.
and when it's done, and that's when it goes. Once it's agreed upon, you can hear it's close, but when it's done is when Schefter, Ian Rappaport, Mary Kay, or someone like that is gonna put it out. But I don't know that there's going to be. I mean, the team may have some sort of heads up, but the media is not. If the media thought something was coming right now, someone would have something out by now.
You think?
Yes. But if it's Peter Harvey, that's where it goes. Hey, be by your phone at 9:00 tomorrow morning. Peter
Because he's
Harvey's
not gonna
decision's
leak it.
coming. Right. And we knew that with Judge Robinson with her decision.
Right.
We knew when it was coming. But a settlement is different because that's a negotiation, and when it's done is when it's done, and it comes out right then. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. No, I follow that logic, but I wonder then if perhaps Peter C. Harvey has given the league a decision, and they weren't able to reach a settlement, and they were going to announce his decision at 11:30.
Again, I think we would know that. I think
You
we
do?
would. I think if it's a
Because
Peter,
someone at the league or someone at the PA would have leaked it to the media.
if the Peter Harvey decision is what's going to be the ultimate decision, then I think, and plus I think that will also be a leak. Harvey's ruling tomorrow as a last-minute impetus, because I believe that was the case with Judge Robinson.
Trying to push the sides to
yes,
settle.
I think part of the reason she delayed as long as she did was giving these sides more time.
Right.
And then when it became apparent there was not going to be a deal, that's when she ruled.
Let me throw y'all this question. Do you believe the league all along from the get-go didn't want no parts of going to court? However, they didn't like the fact that Deshaun Watson wasn't moving the needle on certain items, right? So they knew after with Judge Robinson, okay, she said that we don't really want to appeal it and give it to Harvey, because we still don't really like our case in court, but we're going to do this so that it forces his hand a little bit to go down the track.
So they're
a little
kicking
bit.
the can down the road,
Right,
hoping
that he sees the pressure and says,
And he's felt it.
And he's felt it.
We've seen the apology. We saw the apology.
Because the 6, and then now he's saying, okay, well, now he's apologized. Now he says on record, he says he's going to go to therapy.
And
now,
he would take 8 games.
Guys,
games.
the bottom line is, to your point, sorry to cut you off, G, it's very stupid for the sides not to settle. It benefits neither side to not
Right.
settle. Yes, ultimately, if it goes to court, the league will probably win, as they always do. However, the litany of black eyes that they will get between now
Yeah.
and when that's done
Sometimes
is not
you can
worth
win
it.
and still take the L.
Exactly.
And that would be the scenario where, okay, the league, with its history and with the strength of the bargaining agreement, they probably would win in federal court. But
Yes.
you could win that battle, but lose the war.
That's
because
right.
In the process of discovery and all these other issues coming into
Exactly.
play. Yesterday, one of the things I said, Jay, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this because you weren't here. One of the things, if I'm the NFLPA, that I'm holding over the league's head right now is, okay, that's cool. You can do what you want with Peter C. Harvey. We will take it to federal court, and the first thing we want is discovery from the Texans, because we've got a team and an owner who have they've written 30 checks.
Yep.
They're culpable, or they're not writing 30 checks.
Hold on, we have
What
something
kind of
else.
investigation are you doing on them, and what kind of punishment are they?
Guys,
looking
I
agree.
have something new. Pro Football Talk, Florio just tweeted 30 seconds ago. Source on Deshaun Watson's situation, there will be news today.
I would think that's true. And
that-
I would also think that it would be earlier than later, and that might
Yeah.
be why the Browns aren't talking
Yeah.
right now.
And
With Florio tweeting that and the press conference delayed, you got to think something,
Something's
maybe not 11:30, but something's got to be at least
So
fairly
I wonder
imminent.
if the league could
There's the tweet.
handle sometimes they do control leaks. Not everything gets out. I wonder if on this particular item, the commissioner was negotiating directly with someone from the NFLPA. It was 2 people in a room, and they got together and said, look, we've got it on paper. Here it is. You keep it. I'm keeping it. We're not telling anybody. Let's announce this the proper way. We'll give proper notice. We'll do this tomorrow or whatever. Not everything gets leaked out.
No, not everything does. Usually, like I said earlier, there's 4 or 5 people on each side, and usually one of them
Is going to say something.
is going to say something.
Loose lips.
Usually, not
Yeah.
always, But and again, that's why I said this is a lot like a trade negotiation, where a lot of times you don't hear about there's 100 different million trade negotiations, and
you never hear about.
And the teams keep them silent until it's done, and then when it's done,
well, a lot of times you don't want the player to know that you were shopping him if you're not able to move him.
And it's happened quite often where
has.
players find out through the media that they've been traded, and teams obviously hate when that happens. But that's how fast the news breaks.
Well, the Deshaun Watson thing here.
Yeah.
You know, the Browns are telling Baker's agent one thing, while they're doing a completely different thing behind his back.
I still disagree with that.
Yeah, I know there is some gray area as to what they told him, who they said what to, what did Baker know. But you get the gist. There's a lot of times where players find out that he's the subject of a trade rumor, and he's being told by management, we're not moving you.
Right.
And it can create real awkward situations.
And this is why I say all the time, no player trusts any owner or management in any sport.
And they shouldn't.
So let me ask you guys this question. If it comes out and they're out actually going through the settlement process, what do you think is higher, the games or the fine? Which is increased?
The fine. The fine was 0 before.
Would you think that, is it a possibility he still gets 6 games? But it's just the monetary amount.
Unlikely. I do think it's possible it's not as many more games as we think and a massive fine. I mean, if you're Watson's camp, you'd much rather have a huge fine.
Yeah, it's
and less
$230
games.
million.
Write the check.
What does $8 million mean to him? He's got $230 million coming.
Nothing.
He's already made a fortune in
And
his
I think
career.
the outrage was at the lack of a financial piece to Sue L. Robinson. Like, no fine? No fine. Okay, you were handcuffed with the 6 games. You could have slapped any fine on him you wanted.
Who do you want to punish if you're the NFL? Do you want to punish Deshaun or do you want to punish the Browns? Because you're punishing the Browns with higher games, which, I mean, maybe you could say that they deserve it because they're the one that pursued this guy.
Well, there is a huge faction of owners and others in the league that are not happy with the way the Browns did all of this. From the guaranteed money to the amount to the fact that
Why would they care about the amount?
Well, artificially.
I mean, Kyler Murray got even more.
I know, but artificially, on the outside, the fact that 230 is guaranteed, that's never happened, Bull. That's never happened. So they're saying.
But it didn't affect Kyler Murray's deal.
It didn't affect his, but what is it going to do to guys like Lamar Jackson? What is it going to do to future deals? By the way, the fact that Kyler, the amount of money he got still boggles my mind. He isn't going to set the bar.
I would be if I'm on another team, I'm much more bothered by Kyler's contract because Deshaun Watson's much better than Kyler.
I don't think
this one set the bar. Like, I just think.
Yeah.
I think teams are going to dismiss the Deshaun contract. I don't think it's going to be the game changer.
But how do you explain Kyler getting he got more than
but it's not guaranteed.
I know it's not guaranteed,
and that's
but
a huge difference.
The number was bigger. And that blew me away because he's nowhere near the player.
No, I agree.
In my
but
mind.
the guarantee wasn't the same, which immediately tells me this is not the standard bearer of contracts that maybe we thought it was back in March.
But he's not the guy that's going to set the market.
No, but
and I don't even know if Lamar Jackson is the guy that's going to set the market because he's
Burrow might be, Herbert
It's
might
Burrow
be.
and Herbert the final year. Burrow and Herbert.
On the cusp, Burrow is the guy that what he gets, I think ultimately will be impacted by what Watson got, because that's the way the business works.
I think people are going to look at the Watson contract as that's the Browns, that's the drunk uncle of the family. Pay no attention to what they're doing. I know they won't, but ultimately, I still think the teams hold enough leverage that this is not going to be
so they can band together, sort of.
Yeah, the Browns they had no leverage. This was their only play, guarantee the whole thing.
It was a unique situation.
It was a very unique situation.
And by the way, all these other teams would have done the same thing if they had to.
Well,
I don't believe for a minute they would.
They all could have. There were no other takers that were in that league.
I wrote in March that at least one other team called Watson's camp and said, "Why didn't you give us a chance to match? We would have matched."
Right,
now,
so that's not 31 other teams.
And I've had a lot of people push back on that and say that's not true.
Did you report which team that was?
No, no.
But you believed them when they told you that.
I mean, I wrote it. Yeah. I believed it enough to write it. Now, do we get everything 100%? No, I've blown things. I've messed up things before, but not intentionally. You know, you do the best you can with the information that you have.
And it's always funny when you have the benefit of the results, and so they know how it played out. That's when teams start to say crazy things.
And no
that
team
oftentimes don't add up.
And no team now would ever come out and say, "Yeah, that was us."
No,
we would
not.
Let me give you guys. Let me give you a little.
Especially now.
Let me give you a little more from Florio here. He says, "The news will either be a settlement or a final decision from Peter Harvey today."
Oh, duh.
Well, yeah. What
okay,
else?
okay.
Like, come on.
I'm just reading the paragraph.
Keep reading. I was going to chime in with the same exact
my
paragraph.
guess, again, this is his guess, my guess is that the NFL and NFLPA have struck a deal on a suspension of less than a year, maybe 12 games, and a fine of less than $5 million. That's what he says.
Interesting. I thought it would be more than 5.
I'd be shocked.
He
if it's 5.
is saying he's guessing on those.
What's the biggest fine? What's the biggest fine ever?
He's
He's
not
hearing
guessing.
that from someone.
It's an educated
Yeah,
guess.
but
Yes, sure.
Because he's still his reputation is associated with that comment.
Absolutely.
So
And
it's
that's
a
why-
guess, but he's hedging his bets.
And that's why I go back to this is actually punishing the Browns more than it is Deshaun Watson. $5 million is nothing
no,
to him.
the game
The
component
game
of it is
punishes
worse.
the Browns
Yeah.
more than it does Deshaun.
I agree with that 100%. And I do think that there is an element where they want to punish the Browns.
I think
for
so,
their
too.
role in all of it.
And
I think in particular, forget the number, the 230 guaranteed. I think the thing that has bothered most teams and the league was the way it was structured. The $1 million up front, and I know deals like that do get done, but on this one, I'm sorry, it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck. They did this specifically so he could avoid big losses in suspension.
I will tell you this. Now, I'm not a source guy, but I have a decent source. I'll tell you guys off here who it is. That he said there was up to 6 teams that would have did the same thing that the Browns did. 6.
Well, we know there was 5 finalists.
6.
You mean structuring the contract?
Yes.
Yeah.
There were 5 finalists. I don't think all 5 of them would have guaranteed the whole $230 million. I don't.
They all
No
would
way.
have paid him that much, but maybe not guaranteed.
That's
sure.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no way. I don't know. Maybe there was another team that was willing to do that, but guys, remember, this was, aside from the fact that it was Deshaun Watson doing it, forget Deshaun Watson. Let's just say it was Joe Burrow decided to do an extension way early.
Yeah.
If it was Joe Burrow, we would have looked at that and said, wow, okay, I guess that's the new bar. That's the new cost for a franchise quarterback. But it was Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, but Kirk Cousins, not as much money, but all his money was guaranteed when he first signed with Minnesota.
Yeah, but nowhere near $230 million.
Yeah, but in the end, I think this is way overblown.
I do too.
When quarterbacks are good, they're going to make their whole contract anyway, or even more, because they'll renegotiate. So,
unless you're in your like your mid to
yeah,
late
but he's
30s,
not. But
then
he's
you're
not. So, like, if Deshaun Watson going forward from this stays, let's say the contract had only been $150 million guaranteed, $230 million total. Unless he has a devastating injury or there's more off the field stuff, he would have gotten all that money anyway.
And these guys,
likely.
and the owners, and I get the fact that some people, some of the broke ones, some quote unquote broke owners don't want to put escrow, $230 million in escrow. But let's be clear. I mean, these guys operate like 32 individual kings in their kingdoms. It's very rare you hear somebody on record say, you shouldn't do that. Even when it comes to huge decisions like, hey, I want to move my team from Oakland to LA to Oakland to Las Vegas. Like, they're like, well, should you do that? We're not going to tell you no, Davis. We're not going to tell you no, Jerry. But generally speaking, people do a lot of different things as an owner, and they operate with a level of impunity. If it ain't about messing up the bag.
Jay, do you agree with that? I think there's always been the 28, 29, 30 owners operate as a unit. And then there's always the renegades, the Al Davises, the Jerry Jones, the guys that are trying to strike their own deals outside of league, that don't fall under the league umbrella. But for the most part, I think the history of the sport is that they all operate as one.
They know the rules of engagement.
They do. And they adhere to them.
It's sort of
and
like
the Browns did not.
It's sort of like the players and the hierarchy of players. Some of the owners you mentioned are some of the most powerful, influential owners in the league. Just like the players that are the most powerful, influential, best, most talented.
They have the power.
They have their own set of rules, and everyone else plays by a different set of rules. Ownership's the same way. And Bull, the only thing I would say to you about it, the contract's really not that big of a deal is then why didn't Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes get fully guaranteed deals?
Right.
Like the
This was
fact
the first one.
that the elite of the elite of the elite.
They didn't ask for it.
Well,
I'm sure they did. I'm
Yes,
sure
they
they
did.
did.
But here's the thing,
They
Jason.
wanted
Yes, you're right. That wasn't the norm then, and they didn't get it for whatever reason. But don't you think both of those guys are going to make every dollar they signed for in the end?
They could,
Yes,
but the
I think
team,
they both
if not more,
they
because
could.
they'll renegotiate. at some
But
point.
Bull, the only thing
But
is
the teams
there's
are
no
protected right
safety
now.
net there.
Right.
If one of them has a terrible, debilitating double ACL tear,
I get it. You're
league,
right.
The team is protected because
But
now they can say, well, we're going to get the 150 that was guaranteed, but the 90 on the backside, we're off the hook.
Agreed. But the odds of those things happening are so slim that I
Not
don't
really.
think it's that big a deal.
I mean, it's football. Guys get hurt all the time.
When's the last time a young, great quarterback had an injury that destroyed his career?
When it's
RG3 possibly.
Jason, when
they only
came,
have 1
when they
year.
came up with the
never the
amnesty
same
rule,
after.
He wasn't. That's
what
true.
was the thought about behind the amnesty rule, right? Like, if you're in the league, and I'm looking forward to the next collective bargaining agreement, right?
You're talking NBA? Or?
Yes, NBA.
Yeah.
So if the new norm is, hey, we're gonna offer quarterbacks guaranteed dollars, right? can't they institute something like the amnesty in terms of the amnesty for basketball, where you're like, hey,
guys, we got another. Excuse me 1 second, because we got another tweet. Mary Kay Cabot, there it is. Deshaun Watson discipline news is being announced today. League source tells me. So
hopefully within the next hour and 20 minutes.
Yes.
Maybe.
You know, I would think that it would be around noon. Just if I'm throwing a guess out there, the midday thing seems to be a time when big news like this tends to come out. A lot of people are on their lunch hour. Everybody now, the league now knows that, okay, everybody's on, we're on alert. We know that it's coming today. And the good news is, by the end of the day, we're going to know what the hell the Browns are going to be facing this season.